Fermentation. Fermentation is the process involving the biochemical activity of organisms when their growth, development, reproduction, and death. In another word, fermentation is a metabolic process that converts sugar to lactic acid, ethanol, and carbon dioxide. Any oxygen molecule present after glucose convert to pyruvate in glycolysis process, it will undergo fermentation. Oxidative phosphorylation ceases in absence of oxygen. Sour cells oxidize organic fuel and generate ATP with use of oxygen or electron transport change into fermentation. Fermentation generates ATP from glucose by substrates but phosphorylation as long as there is NAD plus to accept electrons. If NAD plus pool is enhanced, glycolysis shuts down. Overall, fermentation happens when ATP generated by glycolysis and NAD plus recycled by elements from NADH to pyruvate or derivative of pyruvate. Two types of fermentation. First, lactic acid fermentation. Second, alcohol fermentation.
Non-fermentation. First, we will start with glucose molecule. Glucose molecule will then be converted to 2 molecule of pyruvate. It is added with the help of 2 ADP molecule which combine with 2 phosphate molecule which then produce 2 ATP molecule. It is also added by 2 NAD plus where gain electron to become 2 NADH molecule, so produce 2 hydrogen ion. The 2 pyruvate molecule will then converted to 2 acetaldehyde molecule and also produce 2 molecule of carbon dioxide. The 2 acetaldehyde molecule will then be converted to 2 lactate molecule. As we can see, the 2 NADH will donate electron, then become 2 NAD plus ion.
Here is visual about lactic acid fermentation. It begins with molecule glucose. The glucose molecule forms to 2 pyruvate and part of glycolysis. The chemical reaction from that makes 2 molecules of ATP. This reaction could have not happened without oxidation. A pair of NAD plus and electron carrier all in glycolysis. That hope energy from glucose to pass away. The NAD plus get turned to NADH. The goal of lactic acid fermentation is to produce a lot of ATP, causing it to make a lot of glucose, which does not mean you need to study supply NAD plus. You have to gather NADH better. NAD plus produce and recycle to produce more of NAD cost unit. The only way to get that recycle force is to turn the pyruvate into lactic acid.
Fermentation and aerobic respiration compared. First of all, we look into its similarities. From this process glycolysis, we can see that the sugar molecule has been transformed into carbohydrate. During this process glycolysis, we can see that two molecules of NAD plus is becoming two molecules of NADH. Other than that, two molecules of ADP plus two molecules of phosphate also has been transformed into two molecules of ATP plus water. These three processes also being called substrate level phosphorylation. The second similarities is both fermentation and aerobic respiration is making the molecule NAD plus becoming oxidizing agent. Next, we can see what is the differences between fermentation and aerobic respiration. First differences is the mechanism for oxidizing the molecule NADH to the molecule NAD+. The electron from NADH pass to an organic molecule to regenerate NAD+. Meanwhile, from aerobic respiration, the electron of NADH pass to the molecule of oxygen to generating ATP by oxidative phosphorylation. The next differences is the ATP generated per molecule of glucose. From the fermentation, it produces 2 ATP. Meanwhile, aerobic process produce a large amount of ATP, that is 30 to 32 ATP.
Fermentation occurs when a microorganism such as yeast or bacteria converts carbohydrates into another chemical. It is one of the first chemical reactions human beings ever observed. Between 1,000 and 15,000 years ago, fermentation helped people make the transition to farming. Today, it is used for the fuel as well as food. There are many applications and uses of fermentation in our life. These uses are divided by two categories. One is in the food industry and second is in biotechnology. In food industry, they use fermentation to make an alcoholic beverage. According to they discover alcohol by accident when they start drinks mixed with yeast and water. The process of fermentation also used to make yogurt. Yogurt is made from fermented milk. People began raising dairy animals such as goat and sheep around 5000 BC. Archaeologists believe people probably discovered yogurt by accident when milk stored in a gourd or animal skin turned sour. Yogurt created through combined action of lactase and Lactobacillus bulgaris. The bacteria consume the sugar in the milk called lactose, curdle in the water and create the chemicals lactic acid and acetaldehyde, which give yogurt its distinctive taste. Next, in the biotechnology, the process of fermentation also is used to make an antibiotic. The antibiotic can be prepared by fermentation if no other commercially efficient method is available. For example, the potent drug cortisone can be prepared by the fermentation of a plant steroid known as diagonine. The enzymes used in the reaction are provided by Rhizopus agaricus.
In Islam,
The alcohol in several fruit products is produced through fermentation process such as tahamur, wine making, and tahalul, vinegar making. The fermentation process gives an impact to the status of the product, either permissible or prohibited. As a result, in the first phase, there are three types of byproduct from tahamur, while two types of tahalul. All the product can be determined of the alcohol content and give an implication of the status either permissible halal or prohibited haram.
Therefore, injuries considered as halal due to lower of alcohol content, while cider or alcoholic beverage is haram due to above alcohol level permitted, which is above of the 1%. Besides, cider vinegar is halal by the interpretation of hadith of permissible conversion from alcoholic to vinegar itself.